Welcome. It's great to see everybody here this afternoon. Welcome to President Kaler's State of the University Address. I'm Rebecca Ropers-Hillman. I'm currently the chair of the Faculty and Senate Consultative Committees, and it's my privilege today to give a brief introduction to somebody that many of us know, President Kaler. President Kaler has been at the university since 2011 and has experienced and co-created a great deal of change in his 4 short years. For example, we as a university community have invested time and intellectual energy into a strategic planning process that is helping us to think creatively and collaboratively about our future research, teaching, and service, and about who we want to be as an institution. We have also worked hard to provide access to high-quality educational experiences for students, including through our relationship with the legislature that has helped to hold tuition down. We have invested research dollars in a variety of ways to both increase external funding and, more importantly, to allow us to make a difference in our communities in Minnesota, the United States, and around the world. I'm deliberately using we in this introduction rather than I to refer just to President Kaler, because I want to signal the collaboration that undergirds anything that our university does. I hope we each listen today for opportunities for us to contribute to our collective future as President Kaler shares his vision and reflections on the state of the university. Today, after the President's comments, we are generating questions in a variety of ways. First, prior to this address, 181 faculty, staff, and students had questions that were submitted online. Themes from these questions have been identified and have already been provided to me to ask. Second, please feel free to write your question on the cards that will be distributed by staff. These will be collected and provided to me as well. We will also be accepting questions from our colleagues on our Morris, Crookston, Rochester, and Duluth campuses, of course. Finally, there will be an opportunity for questions to be asked in the audience as well. So with no further delay, we welcome President Kaler.
Thank you, Rebecca. Nearly 5 years ago, in November of 2010, when I was hired, Regent Dean Johnson asked me a question during my public interview in front of the Board of Regents. And his question resonates with me very much today. Now, until that Regents meeting, you might remember I had been known as Presidential Candidate C, a nameless scholar from Stony Brook, New York, where I could, as Regent Johnson put it, feel the gentle breezes of the Atlantic. As provost of a wonderful AAU university, I was quite frankly content to be there. But towards the end of the group Q&A with me, Regent Johnson mentioned a handful of what he called insurmountable challenges. Challenges the university was facing then and in many ways face today. 29 million square feet of aging real estate, a changing and contentious political landscape, and an uncertain and unpredictable state budget. Then in light of all of that, Regent Johnson asked, so, Dr. Kaler, my question is this: why? Why do you want to be president? A very good question. Back then, job candidate that I was, my mind raced through a range of possible answers. I could have said I wanted to be president of this university because as the first in my family to graduate from college, I understood the terrific private and public good that education provides for the person and for the state. Or I could have said, because as a scientist and educator, I'm committed to helping create new knowledge and new ways of thinking. Or I could have said that I wanted to be president to lead this land-grant institution's responsibility to help close the multiple disparities between the haves and the have-nots. But that's not what I said. None of that is what I said. Instead, I guess I took Regent Johnson's question to heart, personally. And as many of you have come to expect from me, I said, I'm going to give you a very short answer. And I told him, you only live once, and if you have the opportunity to live a life that can have an impact on an institution of this size and scale, you should take it. Well, I got that opportunity, I cherish it, and here we are, over 4 years later, with me more convinced than ever that we together can make a difference at our university. Now, for sure, today, there are those same insurmountable problems. They have new drivers, they have new names, and even greater senses of urgency. There's the campus climate and culture change and the need for us to be welcoming and supportive of all. They are about improving our human subjects research program to be above reproach and a national leader. And they are about the strategic plan and the enterprise systems upgrade. All are essential to the health, integrity, operational excellence, and reputation of this university. So years removed from Regent Johnson's question, I am more ready than ever to tackle our newest challenges and to strengthen the coalition with you, our faculty, our staff, our students, and our regents. So why? Because what we do here every day truly matters. Educating students, preparing them to be scholars, leaders, employees, and engaged citizens, providing an ecosystem for new discoveries, and serving as the cradle of culture and truly the keeper of civilization. And even as we partner with communities from Cedar Riverside to Frogtown or from Hibbing to Worthington, we help fuel a vibrant Minnesota. Why? Because the whole state is watching to see if we can deliver on our potential and our promise. Why? Because it's time to pick up our pace, including those of us in leadership, to reflect on and address our flaws, to advance our initiatives, and to build on our accomplishments and celebrate our success. Why? Because the opportunity for real change and true distinction are ripe. And I take today's so-called insurmountable challenges personally also, and I hope you do too, in our collective desire to achieve excellence in all we do here at this powerful, compassionate, and luminous place we call the University of Minnesota. Now, before I continue, let me acknowledge the presence of our Board of Regents. Chair Rick Beeson, Regents Linda Cohen, Tom Devine, Abdul Omari, and Patricia Simmons are all here in Kaufman, and Regent Dave McMillan is watching in Duluth. I offer a special welcome to our newest regents, Thomas Anderson, who's listening in on our Morris campus, and Regents Darren Rocha and Michael Shue, who are here. Also with us are chancellors, members of our senior leadership team, deans, and my 13th boss, my wife, Karen Kaler. Welcome all. All who've joined us today here in this theater, online, and on our Crookston, Duluth, Morris, and Rochester campuses. And before I continue, I know we are all thinking of Jennifer Houle, her family, her friends, and their and our loss. So I urge all of our students, faculty, and staff to please take care of yourself and know that we have many services and resources across our system to help. And also, let's simply take care of each other. Now, there's hard work ahead of us and action to be taken. For the Twin Cities campus, it begins with the strategic plan, a 10-year roadmap envisioned, debated, and developed by a broad cross-section of the Twin Cities campus community. And it's a map that we will follow even as opportunities arise and times change. The strategic plan states simply that we aim to be preeminent in solving the grand challenges of a diverse and changing world, and it envisions a culture change at our Twin Cities campus as we promote excellence by, my favorite phrase, intentionally rejecting complacency. It is wrapped in great ambition and requires the entire campus community's commitment. Our strategic plan is not conceived or written down as a simple checklist. Fundamentally, it's about driving culture change. That is, a pivot on how we do our work at an institution like this and with each other. A way that's more collaborative, more transparent, more transdisciplinary, more entrepreneurial, and certainly less bureaucratic, with freedom to fail and try again. It's a culture, as the plan says, that demands rigorous self-examination. It is a bold, formidable roadmap that calls on us to do things differently and contains very specific action steps that can be monitored as we take them. But the transformational goal lies beyond those mileposts. It is a vision of what the University of Minnesota should be. And of course, the university's path forward leads not just from our Twin Cities campus, but from Crookston, Duluth, Morris, and Rochester too. We are a collection of 5 distinct cultures and campuses that add up to one great university. Crookston is a pioneer in distance learning, where its faculty is expected to be innovative and collaborative and willing to take risks. And its excellence is being noticed not only by me, but by national rankings organizations. For the second year in a row, UMC was the #1 university in the U.S. News top public Midwest colleges, the 17th straight year that UMC has been in the top 4. Duluth is steeped in natural resources that surround it, from its Great Lakes to woods and rivers, but moving forward as a leading science and technological economic engine for Northeast Minnesota while remaining a comprehensive university. And UMD is also leading the way for all of us in groundbreaking curricula, with the first offering of a LGBTQ minor for undergraduates. Morris shines as a socially conscious beacon on the prairie, a liberal arts college that embraces diversity and engagement with the land and renewable energy. And Morris is set to launch a new program to ensure career paths for liberal arts students. It's called Work, Engagement, and Liberal Learning, or WELL, better preparing liberal arts undergraduates for their futures. And in Rochester, where I visited just this week, we're building a culture and a campus literally from the ground up. And as a result, it is a do things differently place, merging workforce development with the healthcare needs of the state and region. UMR's range of partnerships with the City of Rochester, with Mayo Clinic and regional businesses is a model of reciprocal engagement for the entire system. Together, all of our campuses, our healthcare affiliates, our research and outreach centers, and Extension physically give this university its statewide presence, but more importantly, a statewide impact as we serve a diverse range of students and communities. With that in mind, and amid the changing demographics of our state, it's imperative that we make this university a more welcoming, respectful, and diverse place to learn, teach, and work. We must intentionally reject complacency about diversity and campus climate. This is a key element of the strategic plan and a priority since day one of my presidency. As you know, over the past year, a committee of leaders has been meeting regularly, and their charge was to assess our campus climate and develop strategies to improve it. What they found was that students of color do not experience the university in the same ways as their white peers. We also found that students in general want more of a voice on this and other university issues. The committee issued a report in January that included 16 recommendations. Some are underway and some are in planning phases, but all of them will be done. One of the first action steps of the Campus Climate Initiative was to give more people at the university a chance to share their experience and ideas about our campus climate. We conducted world cafes and open space sessions involving hundreds of students and staff, but unfortunately, not enough faculty. We absolutely need faculty voices as part of this work. We need your criticism, your ideas, and your commitment. In fact, one of my major focuses from the Campus Climate Work Group recommendation is diversifying our faculty. The provost is working with the deans currently to ensure that all of our search pools are broad and inclusive. And from my own experience as a dean at the University of Delaware, I know that it can begin with deans. I was a dean of engineering, which was then and remains now a male-dominated profession, discipline. I put to work the idea of increasing the number of women on the Delaware engineering faculty. And I did that by insisting that every search pool include gender and other diversity. And you know what happened? When that faculty started interviewing those candidates, they started hiring the woman. And we went from 4 to 14 female faculty members in that college over a not very long time. So it works if we become proactive at growing the pool from which we select. I've also asked that we begin to address more seriously the diversity of our student population. I've asked the Office of Equity and Diversity and the Office of Admissions to develop a high-touch early outreach program for multicultural high school students that we may perhaps extend even to the junior high level. This will require time and resources to see results, but it's important and we are going to do it. Our campus climate work continues. It is not easy, and it will take all of us to make the improvements we need to be truly inclusive and excellent, and a leader on this front in a rapidly changing and increasingly diverse state. We did lead when we changed our procedures on crime alerts and suspect descriptors. I know we led because some people complained that the change was too small, while others believed it was too big. But I'm proud of where we landed. Why did we change our policy? First, the process to change our crime alerts, I should tell you, was actually driven by students. As you may know, I have regular office hours, about once a month, open to all students to come and discuss with the president what's on their mind. And as we began our internal process to reevaluate crime alerts, one day last year during office hours, 2 African-American graduate students brought me a compelling, well-documented, and thorough case for stripping details of race from crime alerts. They explained that the use of race and suspect descriptions in crime alerts is often too vague to be of any value at all, and that such vague descriptions unintentionally reinforced racist stereotypes of black men and other people of color as criminals or threats, and that such broad descriptors create a climate of suspicion and hostility. I was moved by their persuasive argument and the data. And it wasn't easy, but I'm confident after a robust discussion among many units that we arrived at a framework that is workable, legal, and ensures a safer Twin Cities campus. And our policy is now this: to only include race when there is enough information to identify a person and not just a broad group of people. Even as we strive to become a more welcoming campus, we must also be known for a university culture steeped in integrity, ethical behavior, accountability, and responsiveness. And improving and reinvigorating our clinical human subject research program gives us the chance to demonstrate such a culture. We're tackling that work with urgency because our clinical research is too important to be anything but exceptional. We do this work to save lives. Minnesotans expect us to develop treatments and cures, and as the state's only comprehensive research university with clinical research, that's part of our mission. Families come to us seeking their last, best hope, be it to treat cancer, heart disease, or mental illness. This institution has a remarkable history of medical breakthroughs made in Minnesota, and often thanks to clinical research conducted here. From open heart surgery to pioneering bone marrow transplants and to the discovery of AIDS treatments, the list is long. And behind each example are the faces of real people and their thankful families. That's why we will do this work and why we will and must continue to do it. As you know, an external review panel commissioned at the request of the Faculty Senate last month released a report about our human research program with special attention to research on adults who lack decision-making capacity. The legislative auditor also recently reviewed the tragic death of Dan Markinson in 2004 while he was enrolled in a clinical study here. Both reports found a need for substantial improvements, and they offer us significant recommendations for the university and specifically pertaining to the Department of Psychiatry and a subset of activities around our institutional review board. Last week, we assembled a highly qualified implementation team to make sure that our response is timely and thorough. Dr. William Tremaine, a member of the Mayo Clinic faculty and importantly, the director of the Mayo Clinic IRB, has agreed to chair the team. This outside leadership is important to gain the trust of the public, of legislators, and perhaps of some of you as we move forward. This new implementation team will lead the way. The work has started, and its work plan for implementation of the recommendations is due to me by May 15th. But it is our IRBs that are at the heart of our moving forward, and there we need broader and deeper faculty service. IRBs are entrusted with providing oversight of our human subjects research program. We need more faculty members to join our IRBs to step up and ensure that our programs are in fact beyond reproach. We will also seek faculty, staff, and community input as we develop a plan to implement the recommendations, and I would encourage all of you to follow this process. This is a critical opportunity for our faculty to own and drive excellence and culture change in what is clearly a pressing issue for this university. Let me now turn to a term that's being tossed around quite a bit these days and over the past year, called grand challenges. Not every social or scientific crisis is a grand challenge, and certainly not every daily annoyance qualifies either. In our strategic plan, we're aiming at truly great challenges, not granular ones. That's why Provost Hansen has named what can only be called an all-star team of distinguished faculty to a Grand Challenges Research Strategy Group to determine which grand challenges we will focus on and how many. The team is already meeting and working on shaping the process for consultation with deans, faculty, and the campus community. Now, while we await the outcome of this group's work, I do believe we are getting a glimpse of what success and culture change look like through the prism of our 2-year-old MnDRIVE initiative, the Minnesota Discovery, Research, and Innovation Economy program. For example, the Transdisciplinary Research Program Awards have been hugely successful, and they required partnership that crossed 3 of the 4 MnDRIVE initiatives. And then there are our global food projects in which researchers are crossing disciplines, colleges, schools, and departments, and partnering with the likes of General Mills, the Turkey Growers Association, the Urban Farm Project, and the US EPA. These are fantastic running starts to what this university needs to promote within its faculty and researchers on the Twin Cities and the system campuses. This kind of collaboration is also reflected in what change looks like in our undergraduate curriculum. This coming fall semester, we are offering our first Grand Challenges courses for Twin Cities campus students. Here are just 3 that are set, but others are soon to be added. One addresses political reconciliation and will be taught by faculty from 3 different CLA departments. Another focuses on various ways to examine world hunger, and it's team taught by CFANS and CBS faculty. And the third looks at, quote, complex global health issues and will be taught by faculty from the School of Nursing and the College of Veterinary Medicine. These are great examples of breaking down barriers and creating a more transdisciplinary and collaborative culture driven by our faculty and students' curiosity, ingenuity, and the desire to make a difference. From all corners of this campus and our system, ideas are emerging and activities percolating. I know our P&A Senate is preparing a forum to engage with the strategic plan, and our Office of the Vice President of Research has begun convergence colloquia in which are action-oriented think tanks that establish strategic research priorities. And at the dean's level, there's much work underway about new degree combinations, such as bachelor and master combinations. So the strategic plan is indeed coming to life. Now, as we turn the strategic plan into creative action, we must be mindful that while this is primarily a place for teaching and learning, it's also one of the state's largest workplace, with more than 25,000 employees across the system. Advancing operational excellence in that organization, our organization, has been a cornerstone of my administration. It's not something that always tends to excite the faculty or interest students, but it will impact your lives, and I believe for the better. We want this university to run smoothly, efficiently, and at a lower cost so that we can invest more in our mission. As you know, we have reallocated about $39 million over the past 2 years from administrative functions to core mission activities to stem the growth of cost of attendance and to meet inflationary pressures. I've committed to a similar redirection of funds for the next 4 years for a total of $90 million over a 6-year period. I am sometimes asked, why $90 million? Well, $15 million over the 6 years gives us 90, and the $15 million a year comes from the fact that the combination of our state allocation and the income we bring from tuition is approximately $1.5 billion. So 1% of that over a year is $15 million. And so over 6 years, we will redirect about 6% of that total fraction of our budget. That feels like a goal that's both aggressive and achievable. Such reallocations certainly mean adjustments to how we work, and come next week, as I hope you have all heard, we will be experiencing something that will improve efficiency but affects our daily lives. April 10th begins a transition period of about 2 weeks for our enterprise system upgrade. Fasten your seatbelts. Let me tell you a little bit about the upgrade, what it means for you, and why we're engaged in the most complex technical upgrade in the history of the university. Simply put, our business processes are outdated and need to be more efficient. And in fact, the platform they are running on is so old, it's being retired by the vendor. So starting on April 20th, when the new system goes live and you fire up your devices, things will begin to look and operate differently. How you request vacation days, get reimbursed for travel, or downroam classrooms lists is going to change. So please learn about the upgrade. Don't be surprised. Each of your departments has a readiness checklist and other information to help this important transition go smoothly. Change is hard, particularly when we're all busy, and many of us are naturally cynical about big system implementations. I would ask you to be flexible and patient, and thank the hundreds of our colleagues who have spent the better part of the past 18 months designing this to make the university a better place to work. Yet another goal of our strategic plan calls on us to retain and recruit field-shaping faculty. We are already, according to most of you, a good place to work and where faculty and staff are engaged. We must promote our engaged culture so that more of the world's best thinkers, teachers, and researchers want to come here and want to stay here. Through a couple of surveys, we know that department governance and department climate need attention. So we're enhancing development for department heads and have launched monthly gatherings called Talking Heads to help our chairs and heads thrive as department CEOs. We're about to launch a program for search committee members aimed at disseminating best practices to secure diverse candidate pools, those that we need, as I mentioned earlier. And we're bolstering our efforts to gain national and international awards for our most promising and established faculty to recognize their excellence. We've expanded new faculty orientation to ensure our newest employees understand the university and can contribute. One thing about recruiting and retaining field shapers stands out for me, and that is the clear link between an engaged faculty and highly ranked departments. The university is home to many highly acclaimed units based on popular or discipline rankings. And guess what? According to the Employee Engagement Survey, these highly ranked departments also get high marks on key positive drivers of that engagement. Collectively, they are the most committed to excellence. They create supportive environments marked by cooperation and support for well-being. Faculty and staff receive the clearest feedback from department chairs on how they're doing. Coincidence or correlation? I don't know. But clearly, excellence and engagement go hand in hand. And it's incumbent on deans and department chairs to take this data seriously, learn what our best departments are doing, discuss, and work to change the culture in your unit. Our strategic plan is also about what we call reciprocal engagement, that is, leveraging the Twin Cities' unique location in one of the nation's great metropolitan areas to improve the educational experience and job prospects for our students, to advance the public good, and to partner with our neighbor and communities. We, of course, across our system, partner with hundreds of communities and thousands of people on some of Minnesota and the world's most pressing problems. One that's been a centerpiece of my personal engagement with business, community, and educational leaders is the achievement gap, the K-12 achievement gap. We now have as many as 140 faculty and researchers across the university working on closing the achievement and opportunity gaps in Minnesota. The leader of our coordinated achievement gap effort, Associate Professor Michael Rodriguez in our College of Education and Human Development, has met with literally hundreds of school leaders around the Twin Cities to talk about scaling up promising practices and supporting local efforts to analyze progress. More and more school districts are coming to us to learn what we know and what we want to build on to be an even stronger partner in closing the achievement gap. So with that in mind, we are establishing the new Educational Equity Resource Center, the region's first dedicated research hub and portal for information about closing the achievement gap, which will serve as a bridge between our researchers and our resources and educators who work with Minnesota's children and youth every day. The new website will provide easy access to a growing body of research, professional development opportunities, curriculum and classroom resources, and especially those focused on improving equity in educational outcomes. We must be engaged community members who work with and close to practitioners to close these educational disparities. It's at the core of our land-grant mission and the heart and soul of the strategic plan. On another front, I have a lot of fronts this year. This university is central to preparing the talent force and infrastructure for our state's arts and cultural communities. And those who love the arts and natural history understand our role, and their engagement via philanthropy is key to the future of the university. Listen to the story of alumnus Roger Anderson. Dr. Anderson wanted to honor his brother, a combat medic who was killed in World War II. Dr. Anderson established 2 endowed professorships to advance the field of research that supports veteran and combat medics. Dr. Anderson also shared a love for the U's rich cultural footprint. And today we honor that legacy by announcing a gift of more than $4 million from Dr. Anderson, whose generosity will allow us to make 3 investments. First, Dr. Anderson will allow us to complete the $2.8 million renovation of glorious Northrop, our reborn iconic symbol of arts and culture, with the return of its historic pipe organ, which has been silent too long. Organ fans. That means the rebirth of all 6,975 pipes, which since their installation more than 80 years ago have long been considered as one of the wonders of American music. Second, we can also announce that our efforts to provide a new home to the Bell Museum have reached an important milestone. Thanks to Dr. Anderson's gift of $1.7 million, we have reached our goal to fund the new Bell, and we will soon break ground on our St. Paul campus for a 21st century natural history museum that will benefit the students and citizens of our state for generations to come. And third, Bell Museum fans. And third, Dr. Anderson's gift will allow our Wiseman Art Museum to establish a Director of Creative Collaboration position in its Target studio, a position to further strengthen that spectacular gathering place on campus. These are wonderful gifts that honor not only a visionary alum, but also our university's cultural history and our commitment to reciprocal engagement, be it partnering with schools or history and arts lovers statewide. Finally, of course, we are continuously engaged in the state's legislative process. Once again, we're facing significant budgetary decisions at the legislature in the next 6 weeks as the House, Senate, and the governor work out their differences. I'm very thankful to Governor Dayton for his commitment to freeze tuition for all Minnesota resident students, undergraduate and graduate and professional, and for his support of our medical school. The Senate leadership budget is somewhat less than the governor's, and the House leadership is quite a bit less. In the House budget, there's less than half of what we need to freeze tuition again, and even less to keep Minnesotans healthy through a reinvigorated medical school and our visions for addressing Minnesota's health workforce needs. That concerns me tremendously, and that's why I will be spending lots of my time over the next 6 weeks advocating for the university at the Capitol. I urge you to raise your voices and let legislators know that this university is of tremendous value to our state. So in closing, in the coming year, I want us to be focused on a relatively small set of big initiatives. 1, implementing the strategic plan and all it stands for. 2, creating more welcoming, diverse, and equitable campuses. 3, improving our human subjects research program. And 4, advancing operational excellence. And as we work to improve, we can reflect on just how enduring higher education institutions are. According to a Carnegie Council report, if you go back to the year 1530, there are only 66 institutions in the Western world that existed then and still exist today. They are the Catholic Church, the Lutheran Church, the parliaments of Iceland and the Isle of Man, and 62 universities. So universities are remarkable for their historic continuity, but they and we do change. We change because of the needs and demands of technology. We change because our faculty uncovers and gives birth to new ideas and new discoveries. And we change because students lift their voices and because faculty members who care deeply about their disciplines guide us. So if Regent Johnson were to ask me his same question today, why do you want to be president? I'd actually answer him the same way I did years ago, and this time I'd ask you to join me. I'll paraphrase. If we have an opportunity to have an impact on an institution of this size and scale, we must take it. Thank you, and I'll be open to your questions.
Thank you for your address.
Thank you.
We're going to get to questions very quickly because I suspect that there are many of them in the audience here and that have already been given in. Please remember what I had said before about how you can give questions, how you can submit questions. I also want to let you know that for those of you who will choose to give verbal questions today, that we are limiting those to 90 seconds, so please think about that as you're crafting your question. So, first of all, a student from the Twin Cities campus submitted this question. Later this month, the student body will vote for their leadership in student government. What efforts or issues would you advise incoming student leaders to focus on?
Well, I was a student leader back in the day, and I found out a couple of things. One is that the opportunity to be involved in very, very many things is right in front of you. And while it's interesting to be involved in very, very many things, you don't make a big impact as if you pick a few key elements. One I have found in student government here is that there are student groups who do not feel that they are inside the tent of student government, and I think they should be. I think we have an election, we should have a MSA on the Twin Cities campus that's representative and inclusive, and the same for the student representatives on other campuses. Number two is I like to think of myself as student-centered and concerned about the welfare of our students. So I would encourage those leaders, as past and current leaders have done, to develop a good working relationship, not only with me, but with the academic leadership. And be open and communicate with us and bring ideas forward. Issues that are of concern to students that we might not be giving as much attention to as we should, and work with us to drive that forward. So narrow focus, a broad tent, and work with us to affect the changes that are needed.
Okay, thank you. The second question came from numerous faculty, staff, and students at the University of Minnesota on our Duluth campus. Please explain the process used to determine how state funds within the University of Minnesota system are distributed.
So I will give, I'll answer that, and then I'll talk a little bit specifically about Duluth, because it is a concern, and I will be on that campus in a couple of weeks and have an opportunity to talk directly with faculty there too. But very briefly, the budget model is really pretty simple. We have 51 budget units at the university. Each system campus is one, colleges within the Twin Cities campus, and other units. And for a college or a campus, your budget is built by retaining all of the tuition that you raise, all of the indirect cost recovery money that your research enterprise raises. And then we enter into what's called a budget compact process, where we allocate the state O&M dollars to these various units in response to initiatives that the leaders of those units bring forward. So that's how the money is allocated. The challenge in Duluth for all of us is that the combination of an enrollment decline and a parallel decline in state funding overall to the university has put them in a challenging spot. So in other words, as state dollars were reduced, we reduced the allocation of state dollars across the university, therefore putting a greater reliance on tuition dollars to operate. And if your revenue is stable, your headcount is stable or growing, that would be fine. But unfortunately, Duluth's student population has declined between 3 and 4%. And over that same period of time, the number of faculty on the campus has grown, which is important and necessary to do. So right now, they're in a place where they have expected expenses that exceed their expected revenue. We have allocated money from the state O&M budget to them, both on a continuing basis and we plan a one-time investment this year that too much detail for most everybody, but that will help. But at the same time, it's incumbent on units to get to the right size given their actual and expected budget. It's a very similar problem in our law school on the Twin Cities campus, where the decline in law school enrollment has driven real budget pressures.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I'd like to turn now to the group here if there are any questions to take, one or two. I see a hand here. If we can get the mic to her. And please identify yourself, too.
Naomi Sheeman, CLA. Thank you, President Kaler, for those remarks and the things that you identified as needing to do. The relationships between academic health centers and the universities of which they are a part are increasingly problematic nationwide, and the U of M is no exception. If our aim when it comes to how research is conducted is not just to be compliant with various regulations, but to be exemplary, we need to tackle these thorny issues. One of them concerns the starkly different cultures in academic health centers compared to the rest of the university. To a certain extent, different cultures in different parts of the university are understandable, inevitable, and even salutary, but there are aspects of university culture that should be shared, and a commitment to integrity and trustworthiness are certainly among them. To give one example, department chairs and heads serve at the pleasure of their deans, and nothing should be more displeasing to a dean than a departmental culture of fear and intimidation. We are repeatedly told that such is the culture in the Department of Psychiatry, and it seems obvious that there needs to be a new head, from inside if possible, from outside if necessary. Yet, incomprehensibly, we hear nothing about a change in departmental leadership. This culture of impunity, since it undermines integrity and trustworthiness, cannot just be accepted under the heading of collegiate cultural difference. And I would like to know what steps your administration intends to take to help make us exemplary in addressing what is a pressing problem here and nationally. Thank you.
Well, Naomi, my answer will be shorter than your question, I think. These are personnel issues. We clearly recognize the things that are laid out in the external report that was facilitated by AHARP, and we're taking those very seriously. But we are talking about personnel actions here, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to say much more than that, except we do recognize that is a problem, and that may not be a completely satisfactory answer, so you'll need to stay tuned for a little while to see exactly what that means.
One more question over here.
Thank you. My name is Shireen Horzak. I'm a clerical worker in the Humphrey School of Public Affairs and the president of AFSCME 3800. And you stated that one of the strategic initiatives for the coming year is to ensure a welcome, diverse, and equitable campus. 20% of the unionized workforce at the university are people of color, and 80% of the clerical workforce are female. We are on the front lines, and we are the lowest paid staff at the university, and yet we are the faces that diverse students see when they come here every day. Forbes magazine just issued a ranking of the top 25 universities to work for, and the U of M is not included, though a number of our peer institutions are. Reasons cited include free tuition for employees, sometimes for dependents, generous wages and benefits, job mobility, work-life balance, and a respectful workplace. And I want to know if the administration will make a commitment to being a top place to work and to be one of the ranked universities for the best places to work in the country by providing economic advancement and job security for all employees.
So it's interesting that you'd bring up the Forbes, that you would mention the Forbes ranking. There was a Forbes ranking of the best places to work, and that came out today, this morning yet, the 500 top places to work in the University of Minnesota across all sectors, not just universities, is 65th in the country as the best place to work. And I think I ran my eye down the list of just universities, and I don't want to get this wrong, but I think, where is Jay Weiner, who helped me look at that?
Right over here.
Top 10? Yeah. So I think we were 10th amongst universities, which isn't to diminish the comment that you have. And I know that we are going into negotiations, labor negotiations with both AFSCME and the Teamsters, and I'm committed to have this be a great place to work. We do have to deal with the financial constraints that we have. I've given budget instructions that indicate a 2% pay raise for everyone. A lot of that depends on our ability to be successful in the legislative process, because it's difficult to ask students and families to continue to pay increasing tuition. So I would encourage you and your colleagues to campaign vigorously for the university's allocation in the budget in the legislature, and we will work with you in good faith at the bargaining table to put dollars where you and your colleagues would like to see them.
Okay, I'm going to turn back to some of our questions that were submitted prior to this event. The next three are all issues that relate to all of us and affect all of our experiences, both at the University of Minnesota and more broadly. But the way that they have come up recently relates most directly to students, and these three questions were submitted by students. The first one, is your administration prepared to prevent or manage the kind of racist situation that arose in the University of Oklahoma fraternity?
Well, obviously that's a deplorable situation. It was frankly almost unbelievable when I first heard that a fraternity would do that. It's disgusting. We have in place a vigorous program in student affairs around educating leaders in the Greek system, around issues of both just intrinsic leadership, but also of welcoming a diverse community. But can we ever prevent that? I can't promise that it can ever be prevented, but I think we do a good job in educating leaders. A growth in Greek life on this campus is actually something I think that will be good for the campus. I commissioned a Greek life study a year and a half ago or so, and we're starting to implement those plans to increase the number of students that are associated with that. This is a terrible thing, and it's by no means it can be justified, but there are also a lot of good leadership and good activities in Greek life, and I think its positives far outweigh its negatives. But the negatives can be pretty bad, as this case illustrates, and it would break my heart to have students like that at the University of Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the next one also relates to campus climate and the experience at the University of Minnesota. And several students would like to ask you, what is being done to address the problem of sexual assault and the reporting of such assaults on campus?
Well, we have, of course, the Aurora Center, as you know, is a national leader in both providing resources to victims and educating the broader community. And recently, the Aurora Center has hired a male counselor in an attempt to help drive education further out and educate men about how to be responsible and how not to be a jerk and how not to take advantage and how to watch each other and create a culture, again, of trust and respect in all things. And I think part of the challenge as well is that many of these sexual assaults across the country as they occur, alcohol plays an enormous contributing role in many of those. and a culture where we are able to not drink to excess, and where we're able to have alcohol be an appropriate part of celebrations, but not the dominant reason for the celebration. That's a challenge for student life leaders across the country, and it's something that we need to work on, I think, more aggressively.
Okay, a third question in this vein, especially poignant for us this week. How can mental health services on campus be improved? Current emergency services are good, but what more could be done in the area of prevention?
That's a great question, and we have mental health professionals who can guide that conversation. We have a relatively large amount of resource that goes to that, but at some point you also rely on education, on a peer-to-peer situation in which you can notice that your roommate is having a problem, or a friend that you used to see a lot no longer comes around. So there are training elements like that can help. I do believe our emergency intervention is good. We've put some additional resource into that. But again, a community of caring, and it goes back to this inclusive and welcoming, diverse community is also one in which people look out for each other, and that's really important.
Okay. There was a question submitted on a card here that I'd like to now turn to. The strategic plan mentions the concept of global as window dressing, but without a real commitment. Is the University of Minnesota seriously interested in being an internationalized institution? Why or why not? And I would add the question, how?
Yeah, that's good journalism. Well, I'm kind of slightly, taken aback that at the University of Minnesota, a commitment to being global is viewed as window dressing. We send an enormous number of students to study abroad, I think typically in the top 5 of universities. We have exchange agreements with literally hundreds of institutions. We have a very robust foreign student population at both the graduate and undergraduate level. And we have very large research engagements, particularly in Africa. So I don't think it's window dressing at all. And more importantly, I think the language of a grand challenge initiative almost by definition is going to be global in its scale. I'll just take food, for example. If you talk about food and food safety, not only is that something that crosses an enormous number of disciplines, it's a worldwide problem. So intrinsically tackling the grand challenges is going to lead us to a need for global partners and global research and education. So I think it's in the strategic plan and will be a natural outcome as it's executed.
Wonderful. I understand that we have a question from Duluth.
Yes, my name is Dennis Falk. I'm a faculty member in social work in Duluth. Duluth campus faculty members have been precluded from participating in university system governance for over 30 years, and Crookston campus faculty also cannot participate in system governance. University system administrators regularly meet with faculty on system committees, but seldom come to Duluth or the Crookston campuses. President Kaler, I'm glad to hear you're going to be on Duluth in a couple of weeks here. What plans do you have to engage in ongoing consultation with Duluth and Crookston faculty so the views of all university faculty members can be considered when you and other decision makers at the system level make those decisions that affect us all?
So my understanding, thank you for the question, and my understanding is that the engagement around faculty governance and faculty engagement is complicated by the collective bargaining agreements, the UEA agreements at Crookston and Duluth. And I know that the Chancellor has taken steps to bring more faculty voices into his thinking at Duluth, and I know Chancellor Wood's open to lots of conversation at Crookston. So my understanding is that the labor relations situation complicates this, but I'd be happy to sit down with you and your colleagues when I am in Duluth and talk in more detail about where the actual boundaries there are in terms of terms and conditions of employment versus a robust intellectual discussion about faculty input and the role of faculty.
Great, and I believe we have a question from Morris as well.
Yes, we do. This is Pei Ng, UMM faculty senator, and I'm actually asking this question on behalf of several of my UMM colleagues. President Kaler, what plans and strategies do you have in addressing the issue of aging facilities on coordinate campuses such as Morris? Because to say that our buildings need an upgrade would be an understatement of the year. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Pei, for that question, and it could be generalized, I think, to all of our campuses. We just have an enormous backlog of physical plant repair that we need to get at, and it gets the backlog gets bigger each year. Every year, as you know, we go to the legislature with a request for higher education asset preservation and repair, or HEAPR dollars. We show up with a list of about $100 million, which could be a list of hundreds of millions of dollars. This goes through the political process as the bonding bill gets written, and we come back with something on the order of $40 million. And as I have explained to our legislative colleagues, that $60 million that we didn't fund didn't go away. It simply accumulates. So step one is to continue to demonstrate the value of the university, the need for the state to support us in both operating and infrastructure dollars. This year, we put forward the idea that the state would put a little bit of repair and replacement money in our operating budget, and this would grow and provide us a more stable and predictable source of funding. That is an idea that got very little traction amongst our legislators. It was viewed as in some cases, double dipping, and in other cases, just as something that wasn't interesting. So that idea didn't work. Again, the principal source of funding for those building repairs is HEAPR. We do have a process that I do believe is fair that allocates HEAPR dollars against building needs across the system campuses. But it is true that there's not enough money to go around there. That leads, and again, I want to take more questions, so I don't want to give too long of an answer, but the ability for campuses to, again, be smarter and more effective in their use of space, just as we need to be smarter and more effective in use of other resources, is also important, because if we can consolidate, repair, and then tear down things that we no longer need, that saves a great deal. And an experiment that we're doing that seems to be working on the Twin Cities campus is flexible office space rather than the traditional four walls and a door space. And people seem to be enjoying that, and it does allow a higher density of use.
Okay, why don't we take a couple questions from the audience here? I've got plenty more, so I'm happy to rely on those as well. Is there one? Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
My name is Ashley Hall, and I'm the current Vice President of GAPSA and a student senator from the veterinary campus. And one of the things I've been trying to advocate for this year is addressing student-parent concerns on the graduate and professional side. And so I became a single mother last July, and I went to the university to seek the services that we had to help, and found that the Student Parent Help Center actually mostly addresses the needs of undergraduates by providing subsidized daycare and things like that. And I found there were actually very limited resources to help myself and my other classmates. So I was wondering what the university was going to do to try to address these issues in the future, as I feel that we should have the same resources available as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. In fact, I'm surprised that the center didn't respond to you as they would to an undergraduate parent. So we'll drive that forward, and certainly we'll have a uniform resource available to students, whether they're graduate or professional or undergraduate. I will tell you that I engaged the Commissioner of Higher Education around a state grant program related to students who become parents that expires after 4 years of eligibility, and we're working with them to extend that to a 5th year of eligibility. Not helpful to a graduate or professional student, but we are trying to take some steps that will help the undergraduates. Thank you for your question.
Great. Is there one more? I see a hand in the back there.
Hi, my name is Joelle Stangler. I'm the undergraduate student body president. President Kaler, thank you for being here today. My question relates to college affordability and most specifically the legislative request. And it has two parts. The first part is, what's the university's plan if we don't get our legislative request this year that fully freezes tuition for undergraduates and graduate students? My second question is, although it's not next biennium yet, we're likely having those conversations about what the next biennium request will be, and what is that going to look like? Are we looking at seeing a tuition freeze 3.0 or something that's a little bit more sustainable?
Joelle, that's a great question, and it's early yet in the game to be definitive about how our budget is going to position itself, depending on various scenarios that happen in the legislature. So if you will accuse me of playing my cards a little close on that issue, I'm playing my cards a little close on that issue. But I do think in the broader picture, obviously, I think freezing tuition forever is not a sustainable or feasible element. So we will probably get back to a way, to a period in which we have relatively modest 2 or 3% tuition increases to keep pace with inflation. I certainly hope that I never have to have the double-digit increases that we've had in previous years. It's simply not my goal. Accessibility is too important. And again, if we are in a position of increasing tuition, as always, a substantial amount will go back into financial aid to begin to mitigate the impact that has on students and families from our lowest income populations. Having said that, we do have a situation where we could get, if we had robust enough financial aid, and again, we're driving philanthropy every day to try to generate more scholarship dollars. There is a group of students at the University of Minnesota who do come from wealthy or wealthier families and probably could afford to pay a little bit more tuition. So getting that balance exactly right is important. And at the end of the day, we've got to continue to manage a student debt, average student debt that's moving and that's staying the same or moving down. We can't get to a situation where the debt is higher.
Great. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you all for coming today, and President Kaler, thank you for your comments and engagement.
Thank you all.